Oh, come on. So today, welcome to another video. I'm Brett Papa, and today I figured we would go down the road of everyone's like trying to get giant tones. A lot of times you think, I need a 412, I need this, I need that. We're gonna try to dispel a lot of those things and get us a cost-conscious, somewhat cost-conscious, I can't say that with this guitar in my hands, but pretend it was an Epiphone with a good pickup, a cost-conscious rig, and more importantly, can an open back cabinet get you to where you want to go? Can they rock? You know, right? Do you need a 412? Do you need a closed back cabinet? I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna say that this little 20-watt rig, I mean, for me, if you like rock, if you like this channel, obviously you're here, it's gonna be enough. And what we're gonna do is not just one amp. So I got a Marshall little mini Plexis, the SV20, 20-watt head through a green back speaker with an open back cab. Then we're gonna go through a JTM, another one of those Marshall Studio Series cabs. That one's gonna have a G12H30. And then I'm gonna play through something that would be akin to like a Tweed Deluxe amp, and just show you that you don't need to have like closed back cab and all these other things to get a really good rock tone. And I'm gonna argue also that this is a very versatile rig because you can do those cool like combo-esque kind of tones as well. So I'll play a couple guitars and a couple different amps, and we'll see, do combos in fact rock? All right, let's get into it. Okay, so let's go through a couple of different amps, a couple of the different guitars, and so you can kind of hear just what we're working with each head and whether or not something like this or this kind of setup would work for you. If you're a cover band, you're in a church, coffee shop, this video is gonna kind of try to hit the bases on, can you have a compact rig and still cover a lot of ground? I'm gonna lay a heavy emphasis on the rock side of things because I think that's the common assumption is like, well, dude, combos, they're not that great, you know? Although some of the best recorded guitar tones of all time are through combo amps. Sometimes, you know, like Aerosmith and some of these bands, would use these little Marshall, they're called lead 12s with an 8-inch speaker that sound as good as any 412 cab you've ever heard in your life. So the whole idea is to get you rethinking about, can a compact rig really sound great? So if you're a Strat person, this is just gonna be straight into this SV20. Again, open back cab. Keep in mind, if you're gonna do the open back thing, it's a more open sound, hence open back. So the sound's gonna spread out. It's gonna be a little less focused, not like right in your face. I would roll the bass back a little bit because it seems like naturally the sound's just gonna spread out more. Whereas if you have a 412, maybe have the bass up just a little bit, but I always run the bass around like 3-ish anyways. So just, you know, here we go. So we're gonna have a 57 and a Royer. I'll show you an Addison here in the background. We'll show you how to mic up a cab as well when we're done. So check this out. Okay, here we go. All right, so Addison is going to show us how we mic'd everything up. Before we get started, Addison, take it away.
All right. So we have the classic 57 and Royer R121 combo. I don't know if that started here in Nashville. We were just talking. We think it might have, but it's certainly a standard for miking up guitar today. So you don't have to use two microphones. That's just what we're doing today. We're running these two through two API.
512C, I think is what they're called now.
Those two microphones into those two pre's. Also, like classic combo. People love APIs on guitar amps.
So good.
So good. So we were experimenting today. What's crazy and mind-blowing to me time and time again is how just like tiny movements right and left will make the biggest changes. And so there were moments as we were experimenting, what you didn't see is a number of times where we were like, oh, maybe it needs a little more high end as we're listening back and we're dialing in each amp. And just a subtle movement of the microphone would make such a huge difference.
Yeah, like 2 inches.
Yeah.
Or less.
I mean,
it's wild.
Yeah, there were times I would move this like a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch.
Yeah.
And it would make the biggest change to the high end. We're like, oh, it's too bright. It's like, cool, let's not touch, the tone knob or anything. Let's like move left to right. And so that's something I want to encourage you to try is just move the microphone around. Maybe even before reaching for a knob. It's like, oh, there's too much bass. Like, okay, like move closer to the cone. There's like too much treble. Okay, move a little bit further away from the cone. Another thing that we realized, or what we were talking about, is distance, like front and back. And so I typically on a cabinet will place something similar to this, just a little bit off the cab. And something to note about certain microphones and their pickup patterns is that you'll deal with proximity effect. And so the closer you get, the more low end buildup you'll get. Particularly like on the 57, that's a common thing. And so what Brett and I were trying was to scoot this a bit further back into the room. And we found that it didn't quite give us what we were hearing in the room on this particular combo microphones. But that's something to try as well. I was hanging out with my buddy Andrew Masters the other day. And
great channel. Check it out.
Yeah, seriously, really, really cool channel. Great dude. I walked into his ISO booth and he had the microphones like probably 1.5 feet or 2 feet off the guitar cab. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Andrew, is this normal for you? And he's like, yeah, I've been doing it lately because I feel like I'm getting like the amp in the room tone, like that I hear on records that I want to hear. And it kind of deals with some of the issues that you'll get with the microphones being closer in, which is like a low end buildup. And so that's something to try as well. But for today's purposes, we landed pretty similar distances on each amp. And probably I would say like the Royers, like on the edge of the cone and where the desk cap meet, generally on each of these amps.
That's the center of the speaker.
Yep. The desk cap's the center of the speaker there. And another trick I like to do is use a flashlight from my phone. You can get in here and you can see where the cone is, and so you can place things a little bit easier. But yeah, that's about it. Give it a try. The biggest thing with all this stuff, small movements make a huge difference. And don't be afraid to try stuff. Like, don't get too hung up on how far it is or what it looks like. Use your ears because sometimes the craziest mic placements will give you the best tones.
And don't be so hung up on what everybody else is using. It doesn't have to be those amps. It can be a 50 watt or a $50 mic that just sounds fantastic. So try it all out.
Try it all out. We were talking about Justin Ostrander.
Oh, yeah.
He uses just a single. The last time I heard him talk, he was using a single Heil PR30. I love the Beyerdynamic M160, like just as a single microphone. Good. That's a killer mic. So give it a try.
So ideally what we're going to do is keep the settings the same on the amp, although on this one I'll mess around with the gain structure a little bit, but I'll keep the tone controls the exact same. Whole point being is I think these amps and this setup is a very good bass tone. Now you can just imagine with pedals and all that other stuff, the different sounds and variations that you can get. But one of the cool things about heads like these too is they're compact, they're super lightweight, and a 112 open back cab is like 25 pounds top. So they're a really easy rig. It's very accessible to take them places and to fit on small stages. You can also, even though that's like Marshall associated with gain and all that stuff, they get great clean sounds. And also the Lazy J back here that I'm going to show you in a minute. All of these amps, if you set them a little bit hotter and then just use your guitar's volume, you'd be surprised. You can plug straight into an amp like this and really minimize on your entire rig. So maybe you just have a delay, a reverb, tremolo or something like that, maybe a boost, and you're done, right? So check it out. right? So just a little tweak with the gain, you can get a lot of different variations in tone. So now it's more of a total rock sound, which I particularly love, but check this out. You can totally back down the volume. Stakes for free. Out of tune is also at no additional charge, but you get the point. So this head is more like sort of a plexi sound. Definitely great for any classic rock sound, any modern sounds with pedals. You can do all sorts of stuff. What I'm going to show you next is a different speaker and a different amp. It's a JTM series, which is more like a Marshall JTM 45 amp. Gonna say it's more of the Marshall tones. It's more Fendery. It's a rounder tone. This is probably the head I would recommend to most people. I get people ask me that question all the time. Which of all these little heads would you take? If you're a gigging musician that doesn't want one particular sound and want to get a variety of tones, I think the JTM 45 is amazing. Plus, if you can find it, there's a limited edition run. It's got a little tube action going. There's a limited edition run that really sounds fantastic. It's a new G12H30. I think they call it the G12H100, like as in 100 years of it. It can't be 100 years. I don't know. Anyways, the speaker is freaking fantastic. If you can find one, it's a little less edgy than a greenback. It's a little rounder and it's just fantastic. So let's check out that amp and a bunch of different guitars as well. Keep in mind, if you're gonna go this route, it doesn't have to be any of these amps I'm saying, but that 20-watt realm, it's just what I got with an open back combo 112. Will get you through so many different gigs. If you can't hear these amps in here, but it is way gigging volume. Like if you can't figure out how to do it at this volume, maybe you're from the 70s. Okay, let's get into some other amps. Okay, so this is the JTM, cute little amp back there. It is gonna be a little bit rounder, a little more Fender-esque, if you will. So again, I think this is probably the amp that would suit most players on kind of a tonal level where you get your your cake and eat it too, if you will, because you get Marshall and Fendery. And with the open back, it can sound a little warm. So this can sound like a small little combo amp. It can sound like a pretty big amp, depending on how you run it. And again, all of these today are just plugging straight into the head. So just imagine if you're any sort of pedal pusher or anything like that, all the different things that you can do. Now, I'm gonna recommend some of these amps, you gotta kind of get them going a little bit, but if you're gonna use them in a band scenario anyways, you're gonna have to turn them up. And then what I would do to compensate for the headroom, things that people talk about, just use your guitar's volume. I think a lot of people get so caught up on it's got to be a pristine, clean pedal platform, and like, yes, maybe, depending on the circumstances in your gig, but overall, man, if you set it to grip it and rip it and then just use your guitar's volume like every player did from 1980 and before, which, let's be honest, most of the guitar tones that we know and love are from those sounds in our head. So just use your guitar's volume. So check this out. So. Okay, let's get another guitar. That sounds freaking great, dude. All right, so for this last amp, you know, I have this amp and for some reason it's back here and it's kind of like it blocks the light. It's like a super expensive light block. It's actually not that expensive, but every time I plug it in, I'm like, what the hell am I thinking? Why do I not play this amp more often? So this is a Lazy J J20. Super awesome guy, makes these amps. Super, super awesome. I got turned on to these amps by Rob McNally and Tom Bukovac, telling me like, if you're gonna search for that Tweed thing, you know, Tweed amps now, if you're gonna go for like an old school Tweed amp original, they're like 10 grand, it's ridiculous. This amp back here comes with a blue, Alnico blue speaker, which if you haven't messed with an Alnico blue speaker, they're definitely worth checking out. Really, really great on the high end, really great low end. It's just a good, like, it makes an amp come alive, right? So if you haven't messed with speakers too, really check that out. You know, that could be well, they're not, you know, completely inexpensive, but think of a speaker as EQ, right? The difference between, you know, a Marshall head going through a vintage 30 versus a greenback versus a G12H, they're radical sound differences. And sometimes something as simple as a speaker change can really be that thing that you're searching for, right? Now, the thing to keep in mind with a blue is they have a pretty low wattage rating. They're like 15, 20-ish. And you can blow them up, and they're pretty expensive for a speaker. I think they're about $300 a piece. But God, like when you think of like Vox and those like super chiny, really fantastic, like you hit the chord and you hear every note kind of thing, that speaker is really tough to beat. Now, supposedly a vintage 30, they tried to kind of start making a higher wattage version of a blue. The gold is the same way. The gold is supposed to be the high wattage version of a blue. They all sound different, but you'll get the idea. So this amp also, the J20, and I think he does it on a variety of his amps. It has a power function where you can drop the volume and really retain that amp tone, because this is a loud freaking amp. It's small, it's super compact, but when you turn it up, it's like, wow, that's freaking, it has some power, right? So, but check this out. This is plugging into this amp. I've got the bright channel on. All the volumes are on like 3. You can jump the channels so you can get both volumes, but it's a very simple setup. It's 2 volumes in a tone, right? But check out this distortion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the gear listed down below. A couple of the links do in fact help the channel. If you want to support the channel in any way, they will take you to my Sweetwater page that will, you know, give me a little love. If you also want to support the channel, I really make my living on brettpapa.com, where we give guitar lessons that are fun, fast, and will get you better guaranteed. And it's not just me. There's tons of freaking world-class players on there. We got an amazing course from Guthrie Trapp and Tom Bukovac coming out. There is Mark Lettieri, there's Jack Roosh, there's Corey Congelia, there's Tim Pierce, there's on and on and on and on. There's RJ Ronquillo. Really fantastic other players. My goal is to get you a solid foundation and then bring in real pros to help you take your playing to the next level. So check out that down below. Also, there is links that I have no affiliation with whatsoever, like the Tuttle guitars. Fantastic. Absolutely love Tuttle guitars. If you want a boutique, solidly built, incredibly wonderful craftsmanship, I can't recommend his guitars enough. Back there, Lazy J amps are fantastic. I think the J20 amp is one of the greatest little combo amps ever made. Not the cheapest thing, but none of the gear, you know, is. And oftentimes, if you just save your money and get the good thing one time, you'll be super stoked that you did. Now, these Marshalls over here, definitely giggable, amazing amps. They sound fantastic on stage. They sound fantastic in the studio. And best of all, they're super compact little rigs. They have some fantastic amps coming out as well. So make sure you check out Marshall's stuff. Their stuff's been really, really great. Like I said, these amps back here, fantastic. I have lots of friends that really have the real deal amps, and they still bring those things on tour and in the studio to record with. So don't think for a second, just because it's a cute, tiny little head, that they don't absolutely rock, because they do. And then also there's the Gibsons, the Nash Telly, and the Pink Strat. They're both Nash guitars. No affiliation with them whatsoever, but I absolutely love those guitars to pieces. They sound fantastic. So those are another guitar that I really recommend if you want that kind of beat up looking thing for, you know, a competitive price. Definitely not Fender Custom Shop realm in price. So if you want something that sounds really great, plays really great, definitely check those out as well. Okay, thank you so much for checking it out. Also, thank you, Addison, for coming in and showing us how to mic up amps and, you know, just like filming and doing all the stuff. He was my guitar Jedi, handing me guitars, which I can't tell you, as a guy that does this by himself all the time, having help is like, oh. And also, if you don't know, check out his videos with GHS. He's a freaking wicked drummer. He's a killer guitar player, and he can play bass. He's one of those frickin' dudes. So he's also going to be mixing stuff and doing a bunch of stuff here in town in the future. So look him up and check him out. Okay, thank you so much for watching and your continued support. We'll catch you next time. How about the Junior? Yep. The frickin' Junior! This is amazing. This is like a frickin' Star Wars powers.
Bring me guitar.
Use the Force to bring in the other guitar.